What unites the individual stories in the French Dispatch? Rather than treat them as separate entities, I'm naturally drawn to find the common threads, to try to make sense of it all.
I don't get it.
Of course you don't.
Am I too old?
Of course you are.
Why is this good?
To create some form of order, Wes Anderson uses the titular magazine as an organizational tool, similar to the Russian nesting doll-like framing device of the Grand Budapest Hotel. And like that film, it's writers within the film who are structuring these narratives. Well, kind of.
I would start with Mr. Sazerac.
Of course, the stories are connected by geography too, and the film taps into the sorts of things the French nation is renowned for across the world. That includes art. France is the home of visionary painters like Renoir, Monet, and Cézanne, or game-changing filmmakers like Enfant Renoir, Bresson, and the Nouvelle Vague. Revolutionary politics, whether that's the OG French Revolution of the 1700s or the 1968 May one that Wes Anderson draws direct inspiration from. And finally, food, glorious food. As a Brit who has to deal with the pretty atrocious history of cuisine here, this really is apparent when you cross the pond. Admittedly, these are broad connections, but I do think there's something more specific that attracted both Kansas-born Arthur Howitzer Jr. and Texas-born Wes Anderson to the great European nation. And it's what the French call liberté, or just liberty in English. In fact, it's part of their national motto. It's even in the longer version of the film's title. I know what you're thinking. Why would someone who was born in the land of the free need to travel 4,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to find that? Surely, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, he'd eventually discover that there are plenty of freedom fries back home in Kansas.
There's no place like home.
Well, not if you're a black and gay writer like James Baldwin, who moved to France in the late 40s to escape the dehumanizing conditions of pre-civil rights America, and who the character Roebuck Wright is loosely based on.
I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here.
But before we get to that, I'll tell you what's also not synonymous with freedom. Prison. Moses Rosenthaler is not a free man. Yet as a painter, he's able to break through the status quo, creating a new form of artistic expression.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please!
Does this stem from the fact that as a psychopathic criminal, he doesn't adhere to society's rules? His need to express himself is primal. He's animalistic. Anderson's creation is borderline cartoonish, playing with the idea that the most talented artists are the most chaotically untethered from the civilized world. He doesn't even seem to understand the fundamental basics of the free market.
All artists sell all their work. It's what makes you an artist, selling it.
He constantly seeks decision-making from Simone, who provides for Moses what every artist needs: discipline.
Something about the captivity of others enhances the experience of their own freedom. I assure you it's erotic.
Although that line referred to Simone's erotic thrills, it also relates to the position Moses is in. There's a paradoxical idea here that the person who inspires Moses is also his captor. She is both a muse and a symbol of the state, embodying the notion that artistic expression is often a reaction to oppression. If you're perfectly content, there's nothing you need to purge with your art.
Mentally, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love. They had 500 years of democracy and peace. And what did that produce? The cuckoo clock.
This idea is in play when Moses tries to express his love for Simone, and she quickly shuts him down.
I don't love you.
What?
I don't love you.
Ouch. That hurts me. The cruelty of it.
The hurt that comes from this causes Moses to shift his attention and pour those feelings into his artistic vision. The visionary art that Moses creates is driven by his romantic and sexual longing for Simone. This is mirrored in Revisions to a Manifesto, where students are pushing for their own revolutionary progress because the boys want to go into the dorms with the girls. But that's not to suggest that fornication is the only thing on the students' minds. The imprisonment theme is also present in the story. It's just less literal. The students want to break free of what they feel is oppressing them, whether that's compulsory military service, or the feeling of being trapped in the trajectory of their lives, as if it's already preordained by their family heritage.
With my grades, I'll be an assistant pharmacist. Will that make you be satisfied?
Well, I have no choice. I work for my father's glass factory. Someone has to take over.
It's normal.
Unlike the captive troops, the students are in a position where they can push through their constraints. They're young enough to dream of a better future and have the blind courage to put that vision into action. Anderson suggests this visually, with sets moving around the characters as if they are free of their societal foundations. Unlike the concrete masterpiece story, however, this visionary impulse in politics can lead to utopian puritanism.
Tip Top est une marchandise représentée par une maison de disques qui appartient à un conglomérat lui-même contrôlé par une banque, financé par une bureaucratie qui soutient.
Juliet is so fanatical with her beliefs, it ends up with everyone splitting into factions. Zeffirelli's idealism takes him out into the stratosphere, where he's completely free of anything that grounds him to Earth.
An invincible comet speeds on its guided arc toward the outer reaches of the galaxy in cosmic space-time.
This is all well and good when you're an abstract painter, but in the real world, there could be consequences. His story ends with him climbing a radio tower that is reminiscent of the treehouse in Moonrise Kingdom.
That's not a safe altitude. Why is it up so high?
It's a vision of pure childlike imagination, but one that's also dangerous. There's a contrast frequently made in this story between how courageous the kids are and their naivety.
I don't know how to feel. Am I in trouble? Why would my mother be so calm? Is this proper?
Anderson even jokes that they are essentially throwing a tantrum.
Their slogan, the children are grumpy.
Moses, in a way, is also quite childlike, which might stem from having been in jail from a young age. And like Simone, Kremens acts as a disciplinarian, someone who can add a sense of practical maturity to Zeffirelli's more lofty visions.
I made it sound like you, I think. Just more clear, more concise, a bit less poetic.
She's also inspired by them, because unlike perhaps people our own age, they won't settle for how things are.
I'm convinced they are better than we were.
I think Anderson identifies with them too, being a constant practitioner of childlike wonder himself. As an artist, he seems to want to still be in contact with that time in your life when arguably you are most free. He constantly draws from inspirations he discovered in his youth, whether that's Charlie Brown comics, Roald Dahl books, Jacques Cousteau. His stop animation techniques are a form of artistic liberation, Anderson's way of floating through cosmic space-time. But there's always been a flip side to this, which is the crushing reality of adulthood.
I hope the roof flies off and I get sucked up into space.
I can no longer envision myself as a grown-up man in our parents' world.
This is the most potent with the Tenenbaum siblings, who, having not fulfilled the promise of their childhood genius, all retreat back broken to their family home. And this rears its ugly head in this story when Zeffirelli dies. We realise these young idealists are not infallible. They're bound by the same laws of nature as everyone else.
He is a boy who will die young. He will drown on this planet.
Shall I carry on?
Please.
The final story, The Private Dining Room of the Police Commissioner, has a similar contrast. It's the lightest and most playful story, propulsive and genre-inflected, with an animation set piece that's like a Hergé comic, surely another one of Anderson's childhood enthusiasms. Instead of identifying with criminals or rebels, this time we're on the side of the establishment, one that has quite fascistic investigating methods. And the child in this story is happy to be following in his father's establishment footsteps. But it all serves to provide a stark juxtaposition with the lonely plight of Roebuck Wright.
I've so often shared the day's glittering discoveries with no one at all.
There's a constant switch between the fast-paced genre story and Roebuck's melancholy existence.
It came to be known as the Night of 1,000 Slugs. I'm reciting again.
Or Anderson does this within a sequence. A virtuoso tracking shot that joyfully introduces us to the police station ends with Roebuck recollecting his own imprisonment. A black gay man in this era doesn't have to be a psychopath who commits murder to have his freedom taken away. Roebuck may not be transforming the art world or battling the entire state, but his position in this world is political in and of itself. One of the most interesting aspects of Anderson's style in this film is the way colour is used. The switch from black and white to colour frequently happens when there's some sort of forward progress, or when showing a cultural moment that led to revolution. In this story, colour is used from the jump, when Roebuck is being interviewed by a Dick Cavett-like host once he's returned to America. And there's a sense that just this interview is the same progress. The fact that Roebuck is finally being treated with dignity and respect as an intellectual was revolutionary.
You've written about the American Negro, the French intellectual, the Southern Romantic.
And the anti-Negro.
The anti-Negro.
Yet even if Roebuck is at this point a symbol of post-civil rights black freedom, his battle is still to feel liberated within himself. His lonesome dining is a part of this. It's the inner fight just to feel at home within his own body.
It is the solitary feast that has been very much like a comrade, my great comfort and fortification.
I am battling you. A whole way of life, a whole system of thought, which has kept me in prison until this hour.
I imagine Anderson also identifies with both Roebuck Wright and Chef Nescaffier because they are foreigners. And it seems by this point in his career that Anderson wants to be a citizen of the world.
Seeking something missing. Missing something left behind.
He's long gone from his Texas roots, travelling from there to New York, to Italy in the high seas, India, jolly England, Eastern Europe, Japan, and now France, where he's lived for many years. He clearly wants to embrace different cultures. He doesn't want to be defined by borders. And the magazine acts as a place that brings in and nurtures outsiders with a similar worldview. Ones who can provide a portal to people like the young Wes Anderson, who can escape the confines of their current existence and dream of worlds outside of Kansas. But the death of Arthur Howitzer Jr. tinges everything with melancholy. If one of the film's major themes is forward progress, it also seems to be pining for an earlier time, an ode to the free press, a bastion of democratic liberty, or liberté. But it's a type of journalism that is long gone, and for an analogue like Anderson, the decline of print media must be something worth shedding a tear about.
No crying.
The French Dispatch is above all a celebration of writers, and recently I've been trying to further develop my own writing skills with both my essay work and some original screenplays. One way I've been doing this is through this video's sponsor, Skillshare, who have a ton of classes on creative writing from experts in their field. For me, the most important part of the process is just getting into the habit of doing it every day. So I found author and screenwriter Simon Van Boy's class, The Writer's Toolkit, 6 Steps to a Successful Writing Habit, really helpful in getting me to commit to writing on a daily basis. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity. So whether like me you want to further develop a skill, or if you're looking to learn something new, like photography, illustration, or graphic design, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. And the first 1,000 people that click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of premium membership.